With the streets out of the way, I'd like to create a pattern swatch for the grassy areas of the card. So in this video, I'll show you how to add a pattern swatch and apply it to objects in Illustrator. Now I'm going to start here by drawing an area in the middle of the traffic circle. So I'm just going to go ahead and zoom in on my traffic circle here. And I'm going to grab my ellipse tool. And while holding the shift key, I'm going to click and drag to draw a perfect circle. Now, one of my favorite tricks in Illustrator is while you have the mouse held down and the shift key, if you add the space bar, you can reposition it exactly where you want this to go. And then you let go of the space bar and keep drawing to keep changing the size. So that looks pretty good to me. And I want to point out that in the Layers panel, I'm working on the Landmarks layer. And I've locked the street names and the streets layer so I don't accidentally modify them. Now for starters, I'm just going to go ahead and come up here to my Swatches panel and set the fill color to green. That way I can just kind of see what I'm working with. And to create my pattern, I'm going to go to the Object menu, and I'm going to come down to Pattern, and I'm going to choose Make. Now this is going to show me that a new pattern swatch has been added to my Swatches panel over here. We'll see that in a little bit. And right now we're in pattern editing mode. So I'll go ahead and click OK. And pattern editing mode is denoted by this bar right up here at the top. Now, what happened was, in this particular case, because I kept that object selected, it basically made a pattern out of it. And that's not exactly what I wanted. So it's not a big deal. I'm just going to delete that shape from my pattern. But it's worth noting that as you're drawing, if you click and drag and just start drawing shapes, you're going to see what your pattern looks like. Out here, if I zoom out, you'll see that I can see exactly what my pattern is going to look like. Down at the bottom, it's showing me a 5x5 repeat pattern of my swatch. So this is pretty cool. Now, in addition, you'll notice that we have what's called a tile area. That's this rectangle that we see here. And what we're going to do, probably by default, Move Tile with Art is selected. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo the drawing of those shapes, and then I'm going to uncheck Move Tile with Art. Make sure that's turned off. Now I'm going to start by grabbing my line tool because I really want like a striped pattern. So I'm going to draw a line from the top of the tile to the bottom. And then what I'll do is in the stroke panel, I'm going to increase the stroke weight to, let's go with, say, 4 points. I think that looks pretty good. And I've made the color of my stroke green. Okay. Now, what I also want to do is I want it kind of an alternating pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my selection tool, and with the line selected, I'm going to go to Edit and choose Copy. And then I'll go to Edit and choose Paste in Front. And now I have one line on top of the other. Now, if I come up to my Control panel, or I can go to my Window menu and choose Transform, in the X value, after the current value, I'm going to type plus 4pt. And when I hit return, it's going to move that line 4 points to the right. And that way they're perfectly lined up with one another. Now I'm currently using the grass green swatch, and I just want a lighter version. So I'm going to come up here to my color panel, and I'm going to reduce the tint value. I think I'll go with maybe 60%. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. And what's happening now, if I go back to my pattern options, you can see that it's showing me the current size of the tile, and it's showing me a preview. Now that tile is currently too big. If I stop now, I'm going to have big white gaps, as you can see right here in my pattern. But if I turn on this option to size the tile to the art, what's going to happen is it's going to make the tile the exact size of the art that I've drawn. And now it's a seamless repeat pattern. I'm going to give this a more appropriate name. I'm going to call this grass pattern. And then if I want to exit pattern editing mode, I can either hit the Done link up here, or I can just hit the Escape key on my keyboard. And that will exit pattern editing mode. And if I go to my Swatches panel, you'll see that the pattern swatch is listed right here in my Swatches panel. And at any point in time, if I want to go back and edit that pattern, I can just double click on it, and that'll take me back into pattern editing mode. So I'm going to go ahead and click Done, and now I'm going to select this object, and I'm going to apply my pattern swatch to the fill. So I'll go ahead and make sure I target the fill, and then I'll click the grass pattern, and now this object is filled with that pattern, which is pretty nice. Now, if you ever want to scale the pattern, like let's say it's bigger than what I want, you can utilize your scale tool. And one method that I use a lot is if you click and start dragging, and you hold down the Shift key to scale it proportionately, and then you also grab the tilde key, which is the key below your escape key, and you let go of your mouse, you'll only scale the pattern and not the object. Now, there's a slight bug in Illustrator because that shortcut is also the shortcut to access your curvature tool. And that's unfortunate, but it's the way that it is. So if you want to use it again, you just have to go back to your scale tool and repeat the process. Another option is to double click on your scale tool, and inside of this dialog, you can tell it to only transform the pattern and not the object. So if I change this to like 80% and I click OK, you'll notice it only scales the pattern and not the object itself. So I'll go ahead and zoom out, and that's looking pretty good. We have a pattern swatch that we've applied to our object here. I think you could see how powerful patterns can be. And when you want to apply a repeating pattern to an object in Illustrator, harness the capabilities of pattern swatches to make quick work of the process.